Be bold. Be brave. Be extraordinary. Be vulnerable. Be real. Be curious. Be true. Be you. Welcome to Trusting Your Gut with world-class energy intuitive Catherine McIntosh, a show designed to awaken you to enjoy the process of evolving, have fun along the way, and learn to listen to those silent in-between moments. You are the expert of your own life, and nobody knows more about the next steps to take in your journey than you. So please, listen to your gut and discover what's waiting for you to explore. Here is your host, Catherine McIntosh.
Hello, my magical friends. Welcome to today's episode. As always, I'm so grateful to join you live. We try and take live callers and hopefully respond to your questions. It's one of my favorite things to do. So people show me pictures of their loved ones or of their partners or of their family members that have passed. And they're always shocked that I'm able to kind of intuitively read what's going on, exactly who they were, if they've passed, exactly who they are, if they're currently in a relationship. And, it's something that I've developed over the years. And as a young kid was thought that I was crazy, right? As a young kid was told I was crazy and unfortunately was put on a lot of heavy medications by a psychiatrist who had told my parents that I would probably navigate a psychosis my entire life. The truth is that actually I was just very psychic, very intuitive, and very aware, but I didn't know it. And so I tried to fit in to being liked by everyone. I tried to do all the right things. And so I'm going to be talking about your intuition because I truly believe that every single one of us was born with some sort of ability, right? We came into this world, and as we are born and as we're raised and as we deal with, trauma in our childhood and all of that, it can be a little unraveling and a little uncertain, and we get sort of beat down by life. And as we get beat down by life, we tend to forget about our intuition. We tend to try to fit in. We tend to try to be liked. And so this episode is for those of you who maybe you've gotten away from listening to your gut. Maybe you've been trying to rationalize your way through life, but you still can't help it. Like you think about a friend and then they call you. You think about something and then, it happens. That is all of the ways that our intuition shows up. And the more that we acknowledge, holy cow, I was aware, the more our intuition and the more these sort of synchronistic experiences and events in our life begin to occur. And so, I work with people from all walks of life, all over the world, and every single one of them has a gut intuition. They're like, man, I knew it in my gut 20 years ago, right? I knew it in my gut. Like I knew in my gut not to marry the man I first married, my first husband. Walking down the aisle, I was like, I'll deal with it later, because I didn't have the courage at that time in my life. I was 25 years old and I wanted to be liked and I didn't want to disappoint people. And so sometimes we cut off our intuition because we're trying to fit in, because we're trying to look logical or do the right thing. And I always joke with people in my work and they're like, oh my gosh, how did you get to do what you do? And I said, well, I look like this for a reason. When I say that, what I mean is, I have light hair, I have green eyes, I have light skin, I have freckles, and, I don't necessarily look like an energy person. Or I don't look like a Native American. I don't look like a shaman. I don't look like a medicine woman. And yet most people, after they've worked with me, they acknowledge, right, not only my gifts, but they acknowledge their gifts. And it's not about me being any different. It's just that I was called to a calling. And when I was shutting down my gifts, when I was in my first marriage and I knew I shouldn't be married to him and I knew it was not good and I was trying to make it work and I was trying to play the part and look like I had a happy marriage. And I always used to say, you never know what happens behind closed doors, because when I would go home at night, I was miserable. I was depressed. I was drinking too much. I was chain smoking. And I was doing everything I could to avoid my intuition. And so I started to get sick. And I believe that when we spend a lot of energy and a lot of time trying to fit in, trying to do the right thing, kind of look a certain role, we can get sick. Life can start to break down, whether it's your finances or your car or your relationships or your job. And usually when things break down, they're not breaking down against you. They're breaking down so that you can break through, so that you can get to the other side. Because I truly believe life is always happening for us. Things are always working out. The reason we think they're not is based on our personal perspective of life's events. And so I want to invite each of you today to consider that perhaps you are more psychic or more intuitive or more connected to your gut intuition than you think you are. But I can guarantee that you've had at least one moment in your life where you've looked and been like, oh, I knew it. I knew it. And so this is an episode for those of you who might have been afraid of your intuition. Maybe you've shut it down. Maybe you're trying to, look a certain way or play a certain role. And this is your invitation to consider what your life would be like if you recognize that life is always working out for you. It's not against you. What if you could consider that your intuition and your awareness and your little gut sort of instincts are inviting you to look at your life from a different perspective, inviting you to look that perhaps life is truly working out for you in the best way, right? So, excuse excuse me, I just turned my heat on for the first time because it's a little cold in Aspen. And anyway, the ducks are causing some sneezes. So we're going to explore today this idea of how do you connect to your intuition? How do you let go of feeling like, oh gosh, I'm afraid that if I open Pandora's box, if I truly let myself be aware, I'm going to be ostracized. I'm not going to fit in. It's going to create all these problems. So I remember a couple weeks ago, I had the pleasure of flying to Austin, worked with some clients in Austin. I was also just in Texas, in another part of Texas. So I've been to Texas twice in a month. And I work with some really incredible humans. I love working with people who are always pushing the envelope in creativity, in inventions, in new business ideas, in really sort of off the cuff companies that have been uber successful. And it's so funny. All of them say to me, so sitting with this gentleman who is extremely successful, and he looked at me, he's like, what do you do? And I was like, oh, I'm an intuitive consultant. He's like, what does that mean? He's like, I think I need you. He goes, but I got to be honest, I'm terrified of opening that door. I'm terrified of going down that route because I'm going to have to let go of some old patterns and behaviors. And so we all have sort of fundamental sort of trauma responses to certain behaviors. So almost everybody I've ever worked with, from Hollywood to famous musicians to some of the world's most successful, they all have insecurities, right? They all have these fears of abandonment, right? They all have these wounds of not feeling like they're worthy of being loved or feeling like they're not lovable. And It doesn't matter who you are. We all have sort of these deep wounds that happen either before we're born or after we're born. And then we adopt and adapt these survival instincts and these survival mechanisms. And when we're doing that, we're we're basically acting out of fear. We're acting out of survival. And there's a huge difference in our energetic sort of makeup when we're functioning in survival mode versus when we're functioning in thriving mode. So when you see someone who looks like they are exuding this amazing energy, when I travel, people approach me and they're like, "Are you famous?" I'm like, "Nope." But it's not because, like, it's because of my energy, right? And some days my energy's not great. I'm dealing with my own stuff. And so this isn't about being perfect all the time. This is recognizing the human condition and the human experience of being gifted a chance to be in a human body at this time. And I believe now more than ever, in January of 2024, we entered into the age of Aquarius. And the age of Aquarius for the next 20 years is about waking up the planet. And we are all being called to wake up. And when we wake up, guess what happens? A whole lot of crap. So, like the politics, like the elections, like everything that's happening in the country, it gets a little bit more intense. It's not intense to shut us down, it's intense to invite us to wake up. And so, if you're listening to this, one, I want to invite you not to be afraid of your intuition. It actually is a giant gift. So if you're sick, if you're struggling with your finances, if you're struggling in your relationships, is because you're actually being invited to wake up to the truth of your stuff. Okay. So, how do we start to play with our intuition? So, the first thing that I believe is, one, to not be afraid of it, to be curious, right? So, when you have, if you're a parent, if you've ever been a parent and you have birthed children, especially mothers out there, and you're like, "Oh my God, my what if you birth this child?" And you're like, "I'm afraid of my child." No, when you birth this child, you might be afraid of screwing it up. You might be afraid of getting it wrong. You might be afraid of harming your child, but you're not afraid of your actual child, right? You're curious, you're engaged, you're connected. You want the best for that child. And it's the same thing with your intuition. Your intuition is not here to screw your life up. And so when I was raised by my parents who are in their 70s, right? My dad's passed, my mom is still living. She just came out to Aspen to visit me. She's 77 and still rocking it, and an incredible, incredible human. And she raised four of us. But at that time and in that generation, she was a baby boomer, and that generation was, let me sacrifice my life for my kids. So before I had a child, I really didn't know if I would be a mother or not. And I said, if I'm going to have a kid, they're going to be on my back, traveling the world, and they're going to make my life easier and better, not harder. I'm not going to sacrifice my life for my child's life, but I will create a better life with my child if they can also create a better life with me. Right? So it's kind of this demand energetically in my world to live differently, to change sort of the example that I was raised under, which was, I watched both of my parents suffer greatly. I watched their relationship suffer greatly because they were so focused on giving their kids a better life, but they didn't necessarily take the time to give themselves the energy of a better life. And I talked to my mom at 77. I said, "Mom, it is not your responsibility to save money for us, right? To die saving money. You should be living your best life right now. You should be taking care of yourself. You should be not worried about our survival, but more worried about your own." right? Because we're going to be just fine. I've never expected a penny from my parents. I've never wanted them to suffer, right? And so this idea that if you allow your intuition to develop, to grow, if you welcome it into your life, like welcoming in a baby, that you should suffer if you get intuitive. No, it's actually the opposite. It is a little bit uncomfortable in the transition because what are you doing? You're letting go of an old way of being and transitioning into a new way of being. So the old way of being is pretending you don't have intuition, is stuffing your intuition, is in not showing up in your gifts and then trying to make your life work. And you got to kind of transition into making that life work and doing the best that you can with what you have, right? And so every single one of us was truly born to thrive. The universe does not want you to suffer, and your intuition doesn't want you to suffer. Your intuition actually is there to help you create an easier way of getting what you want, creating an easier way of the universe supporting you in getting what you want. It isn't you versus the universe. It isn't you versus your intuition. It's you and your intuition and the universe co-creating an experience where if you surrender your old way of being, you get to receive a different way. And so how does that show up, right? It looks like going, you think of someone and they call you, right? So how do you start to, if you're in this place where like, yeah, I resonate, Catherine, I am intuitive, but I've definitely spent my life stuffing it. All of us use our intuition in certain areas. So I'll give you an example. So the first step is in looking at the area of your life where you feel the most comfortable using your intuition. So for me, growing up, where I was comfortable, because it wasn't acceptable to channel dead people, which is what I was doing at 6 years old. It wasn't acceptable in my family to call out when I would shake or hug my aunts or uncles and be like, there's a Indian with a headdress standing behind you. There's a tomahawk. There is a giant elephant with his trunk up. Like I would see all of these things. And so my parents got worried that I did have sort of a psychosis, right? I believe, this is just my personal opinion, and I might get a lot of flack for it. I believe that diagnosing people with ADD and ADHD, because 50 years ago they weren't doing that, I believe we're sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? We're transgressing, right? So ADD and ADHD really underneath the surface is intuition. But since intuition isn't always acceptable, right? We then kind of short circuit it. And it shows up in these weird behavioral issues. I believe that ADD and ADHD is just a way to diagnose stuffing your intuition. I believe anxiety is suppressed intuition, suppressed awareness. I believe panic attacks is suppressed intuition and awareness. And so how do we bring it out? The first step is to look at where in your life you're actually willing to use those gifts. And so this man who was like, oh man, if I open Pandora's box, I'm like, yeah, but look at how successful you are. You use your intuition in business and in this certain sector of business to create an incredible business, an incredible life, and to move the planet forward in a new way. And he's like, oh yeah. I'm like, you're using your intuition in your business. He's like, absolutely. I'm like, but not in your personal life. And he's like, no, definitely not. And so I used my intuition on the soccer field, on the volleyball court, on the snow mountain, right? Because I was a downhill ski racer. And so I used my intuition in sports because I could see where the ball was going before the ball would get there. So it was acceptable for me to use my intuition. In fact, in high school, one of my soccer coaches said to my whole team in front of, as we were huddled up as a team, they said, I wish you guys could be more like Catherine. She knows where to go before the ball gets there, right? He was complimenting an area of my life where I was comfortable using my intuition because I got accolades. Some of you use your intuition in business because you're getting accolades. Some of you use your intuition in your writing or in your art or your artistry. Some of you use your intuition when you're driving. You avoid an accident. You make a weird left turn and you avoided a giant traffic jam, right? Or you call someone and say, oh my God, I was just thinking about calling you. You're like, yep, there's your intuition. So we all use it in one form or another. We just sometimes dismiss using it in the areas of our lives where we suffer or struggle, because that's where we're struggling because we're not using our intuition. We're struggling because we're trying to avoid it. And so, how do you begin to cultivate and welcome in your intuition in a way that doesn't feel like your life is going to blow up? I will say that there is going to be some uncomfortable moments, and there will be some things that may need to leave your life, maybe some habits, maybe some thought forms or thought patterns, maybe forcing or micromanaging, right? So we micromanage to keep ourselves safe, to try to control a situation. But if you know that the universe has your back, you have your back, and your intuition has your back, and life is always working out for you, you don't need to micromanage and control life. You need to surrender and let it in. And so the second step is to surrender trying to control everyone or everything in your life, because it doesn't work that way, right? We can't control everything. And it gets exhausting. It can break us down emotionally. It can break us down physically. It can break us down energetically. And then we've got a whole set of scenarios and life circumstances that we're then focusing all of our attention. So here's a clue that you're avoiding your intuition. You're spending your life trying to fix an area of your life. If you're trying to spend an area of your life fixing relationships, or spend an area of your life fixing your finances, or spending all your energy fixing your physical health, that is a clue that you're not engaged and welcoming in and surrendering to allowing your intuition to guide you, right? And so what do? Right? The first thing is you want to let your guard down a little bit. You want to get curious. You want to start trusting your gut. And how do you do that? So when I was in grad school, I went to grad school for somatic psychology, and they taught us how to meditate. And in this, there was a simple book, and I wish I knew what the name of the book was called. It was all about how to meditate to begin to create a relationship with your body. So you close your eyes, you'd kind of center yourself, you do some breathing, kind of line your spine, you relax your shoulders, you relax your jaw, you have your eyes closed, you got to soften your face. And we do this in yoga, right? Shavasana. In Shavasana, the idea is to surrender completely. In, lovemaking, the idea is to surrender completely, because if you're all tight and contracted, it's not easy to have an orgasm, right? And so you think about when you have to receive, not have to, but when you get to receive a gift. When you receive a gift, there's that idea of, oh, thank you. When somebody's taking care of you, allowing you to feel safe, what happens? Surrender. So surrendering is a huge part into opening up that intuition. And then I think a really important piece is that connection with your body, right? So when we are judging our bodies, when we're judging our food, when we're judging our exercise, when we think we don't look good, we're disconnected from, I think, the most important relationship of our lives, which is our body. And so this idea is to develop, right, a new relationship with your body where you get curious, because the physical body is giving you signs all the time. Our intuition, our heart expands or it contracts, our gut gets all funky or it gets happy, right? Our energy gets bigger when we're moving towards things that are exciting, and our energy contracts when we're in situations where we feel like we have to guard or put our protector up. And so developing this relationship with your body where you get really curious about your body, where you stop judging food, where you stop judging your size and your shape, I think is a huge sort of step in developing and building your intuition. And so a lot of people do intuitive eating. Apparently it's a thing, right? Like to follow intuitive eating. And I will tell you, when I wasn't trusting my gut, when I wasn't giving my intuition a platform or a place to thrive, I was severely in an eating disorder, right? I was suffering so much. I thought I was fat and ugly. And I spent 2 decades and over $500,000 on coaches and nutritionists and shamans and going to South America and doing all these sort of spiritual experiences, all in the guise to fix the problem I thought I had with my body. Here's the deal. I didn't have a problem with my body. I had a problem with trusting my body. I had a problem with developing a relationship with my body. I had a problem with knowing that my body was extremely intuitive. And the body is so intuitive. So we have more brain stem cells in our guts. Candace Pert, who is a renowned psychologist who did research a long time ago, several decades ago, and she talks about how we have more brain stem cells in our guts, which hence trusting your gut, hence the name of my radio show, because I wanted to show people that there's a way to live your best life right now. It doesn't have to look scary. It doesn't have to look like it's a problem. It actually can open you and open your body and open your relationships and open your finances and open your business to an easier way of living that isn't controlled, that isn't forced, and that isn't micromanaged. So there's so much here, and I'll give you as much information as I can in the time we have, and I'll even show you how can you connect with your body in a better way. There's some specific things you can do, like calming your nervous system, like working with your vagus nerve, like meditating and having a conversation with your body. And we're going to get to that when we get back from the break. So stay tuned. There's more here. If you want to call it, if you have a question specifically about how to awaken to your intuition, right? I don't want to necessarily hear about your relationships or your business problems, but how can you awaken specifically, right, to your intuition? You can call us at 202-570-7057. If you want to be anonymous, just let our producer know you don't want your name being used, and we will keep you anonymous. I'm happy to dive in with you. Give us a call over the break. We'll get you on the lines live, and we'll talk a little bit more about things you can specifically do to activate and grow and evolve your intuition. So stay tuned, and we'll be back after these messages.
Times TV.
Do you trust you? Do you trust your body? What if the key to unlocking the weight, pain, suffering, fear, anxiety, addictions, traumas, and sorrows was already inside of you? Learn to love the skin you are in so you can create the body, business, and life you love. Everyone always says you can't explain what Catherine does, you just have to experience it. From Hollywood actors to New York Times best-selling authors to some of the world's wealthiest and most successful, no two experiences are the same. for private sessions, online courses, live events, and the latest book Jack Canfield calls Game Changer and should be required reading for everyone, go to KatherineMcIntosh.com. KatherineMcIntosh.com.
Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. Om Times Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, Om Times offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an Om Times magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on Om Times TV and broadcasting it across the extensive Om Times radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. Om Times. Open yourself to the possibilities.
I want to eat apples and bananas. I need to eat apples and bananas. Why can't I eat apples and bananas?
Support the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks to help provide meals to those in need. Join us at feedingamerica.org.
All right, my magical friends, so we are back and we are talking about intuition, especially for those of you that have been afraid to sort of open Pandora's box because you're afraid it's going to create problems. It actually creates more problems when you don't allow your intuition. If you look at kids are always following the energy. And what do? We force them. We're like, you have to shake that person's hand. You have to look them in the eyes. You have to say hello. And sometimes they're like, oh, that person has creepy energy to them. They might not to us, but to them. And the point is that we all resonate with different energies, and we all sort of have energies where we don't resonate with. Each person is unique and individual. And I can't tell you the amount of people I work with, and they're like, oh man, I should have trusted my gut. I should have known. I knew, but I didn't follow through on my knowing. And when we don't follow through on our knowing, it can wreak havoc, right? It can wreak havoc. And actually, the universe wants you to have an abundant life. The universe wants you to feel alive and exuberant. It wants you to have a good relationship with your body. And so I do believe that one of the most fundamental and important steps in the process of sort of getting to know your intuition and opening the door to allow it to support you in your life instead of take you away from it is to sort of develop this non-judgmental relationship with your body where you get curious. If you think of a relationship in the beginning, right? You're meeting someone, you're really into them, you're really excited about who they are. One of the most important things that creates that dynamic is that you're curious about them. They can do no wrong. You're excited about who they are. You feel like you're the luckiest person in the world. Well, when we start to navigate this curiosity with our bodies, the body goes, oh, we're going to start to give you more feedback. We're going to start to give you more information. So if your body starts to create pains, I cannot tell you the amount of times that I go to work with a brand new client and my shoulder hurts or my collarbone or my throat starts to constrict or I get a headache or my back hurts. And most people go, oh my God, that sounds horrible. It only lasts a few seconds if I'm not in a judgmental space. If I'm not like in this relationship with my body, I'm like, fudge, I have a headache. Fudge, I have a backache. Fudge, I'm getting sick. No, I go, oh, body, what are you showing me? And that's the curiosity. What are you showing me? what is this? And so we're kind of going to dive in because I'd love to show you how you can start to access this relationship, this non judgmental energy with you and your body so that your intuition can begin to grow. And I believe that our intuition can be very physical, right? I'm a kinesthetic person. Not everybody's kinesthetic. So some people, their intuition might be auditory, right? They might hear things. Their intuition might be sensory. They might feel things. Their intuition might be visual. They might have visions and see things that can't really be seen by the eye, but they see it in another realm. And those are all ways in which our intuition is constantly speaking to us. And so for those of you that want to sort of get out of your head when it comes to your body, what you're going to do is you're going to close your eyes. You're going to kind of center yourself. You get your spine all aligned. You're going to relax your shoulders. You're going to soften your jaw. You're going to allow your eyes to soften. You'll let your hands kind of rest on your knees. You can have your feet on the floor. Currently, I'm on my couch. I'm in Indian position where my legs are crossed. My shoulders are relaxing, kind of trying to lengthen my spine, but I'm also not rigid, right? So I want to be soft. I want my elbows to be soft, my hands to be soft, right? My jaw to be open. And just going to take a few breaths, right? In through the nose, out through the nose, where you begin to bring in the air into your body. And as you do that, you're going to let go of anything that's about your day, right? We do this in yoga where you just sort of become present with the here and now. No thinking about this morning, what you had for breakfast, what you want to have for dinner. No thinking about maybe a fight you had. No thinking about your finances. Just really getting in there. You go, in tune. And then you're just going to energetically say hi to your feet, to your ankles, to your legs, from no judgment, no curiosity, no labeling, no diagnosing, right? We suffer in our bodies when we aren't connected to them. We suffer in our bodies when we aren't allowing our intuition to come through. We suffer in our bodies when we regret a life decision that sort of hangs over our heads. There we go. And so you're just being in the present moment, thinking about your knees, connecting to your thighs, to your pelvic floor. There you go. To your shoulders, relaxing everything. There you go. And you're just going to say hi to your belly. Just notice. No right, no wrong, no labeling, no judging, just witnessing. And say hi to your heart. There you go. And then the way that you can begin to invite this dynamic and this curiosity with your intuition is eyes closed, going inside, you begin to ask your body questions, right? Right? Like it could be, body, do you want to go on a diet? Now, when I do that, my body's like, no. And how do I know? Because I feel it in my gut, like I got punched in the gut, right? But if I say, hey, body, do you want to eat foods that you love? It's like my heart expands. And so, again, I'm paying attention to these subtle little exchanges that are happening in the body. And this is happening all the time. Our body is expanding or contracting to life choices, to life circumstances. And that's how you get in touch with your intuition. Now, if you want to take it a step further, let's say you get a gut intuition that a certain event isn't going to turn out a certain way. And you're like, no, but this person said it will. This person said it will. This person said it will. I had a client a few months ago, and I was like, yeah, there's going to be something that happens in your life, and this is what's going to happen. And she's like, oh my God, that would be amazing. And she's like, but I don't believe it, right? Because she had sort of her walls up because she had been feeling attacked by a few situations and scenarios in her life. So she was a little closed down to this specific event in her life. And I was like, I think it's going to work out and turn out better than you think. And she texted me, she's like, Catherine, how did you know? And I was like, I just was looking at the energy. And the way I looked at the energy was I asked, is this scenario, what's going to turn out? And it was like, it's going to turn out better for her. So I said, this is what I think is going to happen. She's like, oh, and she called me and she's like, I can't believe you were right. And I have to tell you, I'm not interested in being right, but I'm surprised every time I work with someone that the things that I do actually work. And the way and the reason they work is because I'm constantly having this dialogue between me and my body, between my body and the universe, between the energies in the field, and just looking at the truth instead of trying to create an outcome. And so I want to invite all of you, if you want a different outcome in your life, you want better relationships, you want your current relationship to improve, you want to increase your financial capacity, start having a conversation with the universe. How do you make that happen? What's required? And a lot of times you'd be surprised. The number one thing that I hear from when I'm doing this and getting connected is surrender. Let go of trying to control the outcome and just look at the energy. And when we look at the energy of things, we change the energy, right? When you look at a molecule in the universe and the molecule change. The outcome changes. And so instead of trying to force an outcome, look at it from no judgment, from not labeling, from not trying to figure it out, and just allow. And so surrendering is a really important key. Not judging you or your body, really important key. Not having regrets about your life circumstances and recognizing that you can change where you are today if you let go of hanging on to the past. So years ago, I was sitting in the shamanic circle, and I believe I've told this story before. I was 28 years old. I was going through the divorce to my first husband, the one I knew not to walk down the aisle and marry. And I said, well, I'll deal with it later. Well, later for me was being on our honeymoon and being thrown overboard and the boat sinking, right? Big clue, right? And being cheated on, right? All these things happen. And so I was sitting in the shamanic circle on Hawaii, on the Big Island, with this man who did I worked with for 8 years, did a lot of shamanic ceremonies. He's no longer with us, passed a few years ago. And this old man, this older gentleman, probably in his 60s, maybe in his early 70s. I was in shamanic circles. They believe in sitting in a circle and according to your age. So the youngest sits on one side of the circle, and then chronologically in age, right, till the oldest sits on the other side. So I was one of the youngest. He was the oldest. And he looked at me at the end of going around and sort of sharing with the whole group. There was about 28 of us, 30 of us in this circle. And he looked at me with kind of like this resentment. He's like, I wish I was sitting in this circle when I was her age, right? Pointing to me. And the shaman looked, he said, well, you're here now. Imagine you wouldn't be in this circle at all. He goes, you can either hang on to your resentments or you can recognize and witness it right now, today. You have a choice and an opportunity and a chance to surrender and let go. And so when we surrender and let go and realize that the universe is always working out for us. So this isn't be complacent. This isn't to let go of your dreams. This isn't to be bounced around like a ping pong ball on a ping pong table by life. This is let yourself be your foundation. Let yourself be steady. Invite your guides, invite the universe, invite the best of life to come in and support you towards your goals, towards the direction that you want to take in your life. And that's where the magic happens, right? So the first thing I would do if I was, in a place where you're like, okay, I want to start using my intuition in my career. I want to start using my intuition in my intimate relationships. I want to start using my intuition with my kids, or teaching my kids how to not give their intuition up, how to not try to conform to society's expectations, right? All of the drugs, all of the prescriptions, all of the diagnoses that we have is all an attempt to shut us down, so we start going with the crowd. But you weren't born to go with the crowd. You were born to stand out. You were born to be different. You were born for a great life, and whatever that is to you. So for some of you, that great life is being a mom. One of my closest friends, love her dearly. Most of her life was designated to raising her children. And now she's in a new life phase. And she's like, Catherine, I think I need help, because I knew who I was. I knew how to use my intuition as a mom and to be, a mom to my kids. And now I'm transitioning into a new life phase, and I'm not sure what to do. And it's like, well, you actually do know what to do, but you have to let go of your old identity. You have to surrender the old and open to the new. And every day we're being invited to surrender to the old and open to the new. And so one is to get quiet, to do a bit of a meditation, to connect to your body and start to ask your body questions, right? I would start with questions where you don't contract your energy. So if you're dealing with a health crisis, you don't want to ask health questions right away, right? Maybe you want to ask about a parking spot. Maybe you want to ask about a lottery ticket if you're not in financial stress. But in the areas of our life where we're in stress, we don't want to ask those questions initially to begin to develop the intuition. You want to ask maybe about a parking spot, maybe about taking a trip to Greece, or where in the world your next trip should be. Maybe you want to ask questions about where to go to dinner, right? Where would be the funnest place to go eat if you're taking your family or your loved one out for a nice meal? So you start with questions where there's not a lot of stress, so there's not a lot of pressure, and there's not a lot of need to get the answer right. There's just a curiosity. And the more that you do that for about a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, then you can start to go, oh, I notice it when I think about this topic, my energy contracts. That's a clue that you've contracted and you're not using your intuition in that area of your life. So growing up, I used my intuition in sports, but I didn't use my intuition in my family life because it felt a little chaotic. It felt a little hard. I didn't feel safe to be myself, but I did feel safe to be myself on the soccer field or on the volleyball court. So that's number one. Number two is find modalities or ways in which you can work with healing your parasympathetic nervous system. If you're in fight or flight, it's hard to be present. It's hard to surrender. It's hard not to judge. And it's hard not to stay connected to the past. So you want to really see if you can work with your parasympathetic nervous system so that you're in a more relaxed and balanced state and not so tight and stressed and tense. Because it's hard to get clear on an answer when you're stressed out, right? When you're stressed are the times that we tend to micromanage, we tend to control situations, or we tend to control people. We tend to make quick, rash decisions, right? So that's sort of your clue. So working with the parasympathetic nervous system, I have on my website a free nervous system download. It is old. I do have a new one that we're putting up soon, but I'm working on redoing my website because I've gotten feedback lately like, Catherine, you need to redo your website. I'm like, I know it's old. I got a lot of really great content, a lot of really cool stuff on my website, but it is old. It doesn't represent who I am today, right? But the point is that go to my website. You can judge it or not, but there is some really great content and free resources available to you. So you can go to my website, katherinemcintosh.com. There's a free nervous system download. You can find out 3 simple moves how to heal your nervous system. You can also work with your vagus nerve, right? I've seen a lot of things on Instagram, like putting your finger in your ear and kind of working with your ear to like calm your nervous system. You do it on both sides. You can put your hands behind your head and open up your vagus nerve, right? There's lots of tools. I've got some great content and resources that are free. You can also do some paid ones to get you in alignment. I teach live in Aspen a somatic class that helps you with simple somatic movements to heal your nervous system from the inside out. Because when we are relaxed, when we're open, when we're in a place of surrender and no judgment, that's when our intuition is at its optimal. And that's when we're also at our optimal to be able to listen to our guts, to be able to listen to our intuition. When we're stressed out, it's much harder to do. So I want to invite any of you that are listening to this. I also on my website have this incredible class. It's called the Intuitive Energy Certification Course. And it's designed to help you with your intuition. It's designed especially if you're curious about how to work with energy to change situations in your life, how to maybe even if you're curious about how do you work with others in this realm of energy. It's a certification course for those interested, but I've had a lot of people do it who don't want to work with other people, but maybe they're attorneys or they're working in the AI sector or they have a business with a few thousand employees and they're like, I want to use this in my line of work. This course can help. Right now it's on a wait list, but you can go on my website. You can sign up for the wait list. I also believe the link is in the description of the course. But the point is don't be afraid of your intuition. Y'all have one. Y'all might as well use it because the truth is life really, truly does not want you to suffer. The universe doesn't want you to suffer. Your body doesn't want you to suffer. And so this is your invitation to get clear, to open up new pathways so that you can be guided to say yes to those things that expand. I cannot tell you the amount of times in my life that not only myself, but I've witnessed people I work with and encourage them, say yes to those things where your body goes, yes. Don't try to figure out the how. Let the universe figure out the how for you. That's how intuition works. And when we truly surrender, when we're not micromanaging, when we're not scared, when we're not in survival, when we're not in fight or flight, things will open up as if by magic. So this is your invitation right now, today. Listen to any episode on this show. You can go to my website, get free content, but you are a gift. You weren't meant to suffer. You are meant to be here for a reason. And when you figure out what that reason is, your life will come alive. So I want to thank you for joining me today on today's episode. I hope you have a fantastic day, a magical week. If this resonated with you, leave us a comment, share it with someone you know, share it on social media, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye for now.
Catherine is not a medical practitioner nor a licensed therapist. She has strong opinions and will express them and truly believes that you are your best advocate for any and every area of your life. If you need medical advice, please consult your physician.